Hi guys, I'm Billy and let's talk books. Since it is the beginning of a brand new reading year, I thought to myself, why not put together a bit of a TBR? Now, one of the things I mentioned on this channel that was one of my main goals is reading a bit more for fun. So I thought, why don't I put together a bit of a list, my 26 books of 2026 that I want to get to. Books that I have heard of, maybe some that I've bought that I haven't been able to read yet. And I'm not going to waste any time. I'm just going to get straight into my list. So these are the 26 books that I want to read this coming year. I tried to be a little bit open-minded, tried to put books from multiple different genres, and I'll go through them one by one now. So book one on my list is going to be Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I started a bit of a Leigh Bardugo deep dive this year in the hopes of getting to the Netflix show Shadow and Bone. So far, I have read the entire Shadow and Bone series. I've only posted my video on book one so far, but books 2 and 3 should be coming soon. And I also read Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo as well. And the next one on the list is going to be the Six of Crows. So I'm hoping to get to this quite soon. I've heard of Six of Crows for years and years. It is often put up there with one of like the best YA fantasy novels ever written. A lot of people consider this one to be their favorite. So I'm super excited about this. It's set in the Grishaverse as well. So obviously I've just read the Shadow and Bone series, so I'm deep in the lore. I have lots of background information and I'm just super excited to get back in the world and kind of see what all the hype is about. Like, is the Six of Crows duology going to completely wipe the floor with Shadow and Bone? Because I did enjoy Shadow and Bone. So I'm very excited to find out. This book is set in the Grishaverse. It's part of the same fictional universe as Shadow and Bone, and it basically follows a criminal prodigy called Kaz Brecker, who is putting together a little heist, and it will be him and his kind of gang of misfit criminals trying to pull off like a huge heist. So that sounds really interesting, really fun. I just really am excited to be back in the Grishaverse, and this one's quite high up on my list of priorities of what to get to. Number 2 is going to be The Shining by Stephen King. I've started a bit of a Stephen King readathon on my channel already. That was my very first video, me reading It by Stephen King, which was actually my very first Stephen King novel. I've got a video coming out this month on the next Stephen King book I read, which was Misery, and I've also started reading Salem's Lot, so that will be the next one. But I had to include another Stephen King on my 26 books of 2026, and I decided to go for The Shining because it's another one of those just must-read King books that everybody says if you want to be a fan of Stephen King, you have to read The Shining, and so I'm going to. I mean, I'm very excited. The concept is basically about a guy named Jack who begins a new job at the Overlook Hotel, the infamous Overlook Hotel. I've never watched the movie either, actually, so maybe I'll get to that too. But he starts his new job at this hotel, and the place quickly becomes very sinister and some strange things start happening, and it is only a 5-year-old called Danny who is able to notice what is happening. I think he's a gifted child. Super excited to finally tick The Shining off of my list this year. I'm not going to be giving too much of a description of these novels either because I like to go in as blind as possible, so I just want to know kind of like the basic overview of each of these novels, so that's what I'm going to be providing here. The next novel is The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. I see this one in bookshops all the time, and I know that it's a big BookTok sensation, so I wanted to get a bit more kind of BookTok fantasy ticked off my list. So this novel is a bit of a dark academia where each decade 6 students are invited to be considered for initiation into the foremost secret society for like magical academics, and they have a year to prove themselves because only 5 of them will be making it into the academy. So we will be following these individuals. This one sounds a lot of fun. I like a school setting and I love a bit of magic and intrigue and a competition. So yeah, I think this one's going to be good. The next one is Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I've heard of this one a lot as well, and I really think I'm going to enjoy this one. This one basically follows a small cafe in Japan, which allows its guests the ability to travel back in time to what I think is a moment in their past, and they only have until the coffee gets cold before they must return to the present day. So I have a feeling this is going to deal with a lot of like really big themes, maybe grief and loss, and maybe just be quite heartwarming. So I'm excited to start this one. I know there's quite a lot in the series, so I guess I'll see if I like this one, if I want to carry on. But yeah, the next one is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Motar and Max Gladstone. And this one basically follows two rival agents, and they're on opposite sides of like a conflict, but they end up having to kind of correspond with one another and forming a bit of a bond. But this bond is one that could get them killed because, like I say, they're on two opposing sides of a war. And I don't know much about this one except that it's a sci-fi and it's highly praised, and I'm just very excited to read it. The next one on my list is A Court of Thorns and Roses, or ACOTAR by Sarah J. Maas, which I'm sure you have heard of, but let me introduce it to you anyway. This one follows a young girl, Feyre, who kills a wolf in the woods, and in the night a creature comes to exact revenge for this killing. She's then taken into the magical Fey land and I think forced to live out a punishment in this kingdom. This is the mammoth giant of romantasy, this one along with Fourth Wing, which I will also be reading very soon. If you've watched my last video on the Goodreads Choice Awards, I will be reading Fourth Wing and I will be reading ACOTAR, so I feel like I will be reading both of the big giants this year. I don't know what to expect. I don't know if I'll enjoy it. I am very open-minded. I'm intimidated, but I hope that it's a fun time and I'm excited to get to it. The next one on my list is Scythe by Neil Shusterman, and this one is a bit of a sci-fi dystopian series that I've had my eye on for a while now. I really want to start a few more series because I just haven't really had a chance to, and this one really caught my attention. So this one basically is set in a world where humanity has conquered death, illness, poverty, all the negative things, but they still need a way to manage the population. And so they created this idea of scythes, and these scythes are responsible for who lives and who dies in this society. And the novel basically follows our protagonists who are apprentice scythes and are in training for their role. This one just honestly sounds so fascinating to me. I love a concept where you kind of have like these big existential questions on like life and death and value and who gets to decide and playing God. So I think there's going to be a lot of really cool stuff in here. Plus, I just really love a dystopian fiction. I haven't read one in a while, and I want something that is a page turner and has lots of intrigue and great characters. So I'm hoping this will be the series I start this year that I just absolutely love. Speaking of sci-fi series, my next one is Vicious by V.E. Schwab, and this is the first in a series also. This one I believe is a little bit of a superhero novel, but I don't know too much about it. So it basically follows two college roommates who discover that supernatural conditions can develop in humans, and they kind of take their research and do some experimental things, and things go very, very wrong. We pick up with them 10 years later. One of them has just been released from prison, and the other one is out in the world, I think, trying to take down supernatural beings, but the two have become foes during this time, so I guess we follow them on their journey from there. I wanted to give another V.E. Schwab novel a chance because I read Addie LaRue and I did really like the writing and I loved all of the ideas. I thought that V.E. Schwab had some great ideas, but the execution just wasn't quite there for me. So I wanted to try another one, and this is the one that I ended up going for. The next novel that I'm going to be reading is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one follows aging Hollywood movie icon Evelyn Hugo, and she has agreed to kind of give out this interview where she details her life, her stardom, her seven husbands, and we just follow her basically revealing all the information about her very interesting life. I've wanted to read a Taylor Jenkins Reid novel for a while because, again, I feel like she is just an absolute giant of the past 10 years. Her novels are so often recommended and highly lauded, and this one is the one I definitely hear talked about the most, so I went for this one. I know Daisy Jones and the Six is another that's really popular, but I felt a bit more pulled to the concept of this one. I'm also going to be reading Atmosphere for my Goodreads challenge, so I guess we'll have two in one there. I just wanted to kind of get off some of these big authors, these big names that have been really popular recently that I haven't read any work from. So that one is going to be on my list as well. The next novel that I have on my 26 books is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. And yes, I know, I cannot believe I've never read it either, but I have not. So this is the year. And this is known as kind of like the mother of dark academia. It follows a group of students at a New England college who get kind of embroiled in this secret society, bit of a cult-like society, and they challenge different boundaries of morality, and I think they get up to a bunch of crazy stuff, and the novel basically follows them as they become more and more obsessed with kind of corruption and evil, and it just goes downhill from there. This one was a high priority of mine because I have a few people in my life who they consider this their favorite book of all time. One of my best friends has said that this is like her favorite book of all time, and I very much trust her judgment, and I just have been dying to read this. I have a feeling I'm going to really enjoy it, so it is very anticipated for me. Plus, I need to know where the concept and the ideas of dark academia come from, so I feel like I need to read this one, and I'm very excited for it. The next book is Chain Gang All-Stars by Nanakwame Adjei-Brenyah, and this one really, as soon as I read the description, I was hooked, and I was like, yes, I need to read this now. So this one is set in a society where prisoners are given the opportunity to fight to the death, and if they win, then they will receive their freedom. But this is kind of like a spectacle which is televised and very popular, but also quite controversial, and we follow some of the prisoners as they compete in these kind of trials, I guess. But yeah, this one just really spoke to me. It sounded a bit like Hunger Games-y, but it also has like a commentary on the prison systems and race in America, and I just think that the combining of these two things, of a bit of a dystopian setting that also comments on social issues, just sounds right up my street. I'm very excited for this one. The next is going to be Water by John Boyne. This is kind of a literary fiction that I saw recommended. It's one in a 4-part series which follows the elements, and the first one follows Vanessa, who has moved to a small island and changed her name and is fleeing from a troubling past. While she is there, she has to come to terms with what happened and whether her ex-husband is really the monster that everyone has said that he is, and if he is, then how complicit was she in his crimes. And this one just sounded very interesting. I think that it's probably going to delve into some really interesting and important topics. I've had a quick look at the other 3 in the series as well, and they all just seem like they have a lot to say and a lot of important and impactful commentary. So yeah, I'm excited for this, and I wanted a bit more literary fiction on here, so I went for this one. The next one on my list is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I've heard this one recommended a lot as well. I love science fiction, and I love the kind of conversations it can provoke in you, and I feel like it always blows my mind. I always feel like I read science fiction and I'm just blown away by ideas that I could never have thought of in a million years. There's so many twists and turns, and this one has come highly praised, so I'm very excited to read this one. The synopsis is that Jason Dessen is walking home one day and he is abducted, but the last thing he hears before he passes out is, "Are you happy with your life?" When he wakes up, he's in an alternate reality where his wife isn't his wife and lots of things are very different. So I didn't want to read too many spoilers about this one because I'd like to go in very blind and just see where the narrative takes us. So yeah, that one's very exciting. The next one on my list is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. This is a romance, and like I've said a few times on here, I want to kind of expand my reading, and I don't really read romance novels, but I want to know a bit more about it and maybe find some that I really enjoy. And I know that Abby Jimenez is another, along with Emily Henry and Ali Hazelwood, who are really popular. So I've already read an Emily Henry, and I'm reading another one for my Goodreads video, and I wanted to try a different author, and I felt like Abby Jimenez just was a good choice, so I went for this one. This follows a city girl, an ER doctor called Alexis, and a carpenter called Daniel, who is 10 years younger than her and also from, I think, a small town, and the two of them have very different ways of life. Their relationship starts off as quite a casual thing, but maybe over time the lines become blurred. So yeah, I guess I just picked this one because of the author and wanting to know a bit more about their work and wanting to get a bit more into the genre of romance. So I'm looking forward to it. I really would like to find like a great romance novel that is just completely for me, because even though I liked Beach Read by Emily Henry, it wasn't like totally ticking all the boxes for me. So I'm hoping maybe this will be the one. The next one that I'll be reading is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This one follows a group of 40 women who are imprisoned under underground, and our main character is a young girl who has never known men and has only grown up around women. That idea and that concept is just so intriguing to me. I think that it's a very speculative piece of work, and this idea of trying to understand what a person would be like if they'd grown up never knowing any men. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of interesting commentary here. I've wanted to read this for a while, so I'm going to make this a priority this year. The next one is The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie, and I'm very excited for this. I've wanted to read this for a long time. I love high fantasy. I love epic fantasy. I always have. Song of Ice and Fire is like my favorite series of all time. I need to get some more favorites. I need to be able to read some more series, some more fantasy stuff. And I went with Joe Abercrombie because I know that he is kind of known for grimdark. He is often compared to George R.R. Martin. So I thought maybe this would be a good place for me to start. So I'm going to start The Blade Itself. Is it the First Law trilogy? So this one is a fantasy grimdark epic. We follow a wide variety of characters, including a barbarian, an officer, a torturer, and a magician. That's pretty much all I know about it. I don't want to read too much more into it because I'd rather kind of be swept away in it, but I'm really excited to kind of go back to my roots and start reading a bit more epic fantasy. I realized when I made my tier ranking that I didn't read any epic fantasy this year. Well, last year now that it's 2026, but I didn't read any epic fantasy in 2025, and I haven't in quite a long time because I've been just too busy studying. So I need to get back to my roots, and I think the first one I'm going to go with is The First Law. The next one on my list is going to be Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. This one is kind of like a modern classic. It is very highly regarded, I think, in both popular culture and also the academic world as a huge triumph of science fiction, and I really wanted to get to it. I also wanted to get to some more kind of sci-fi by Black authors, so I'm very excited for this one. This follows Dana, a modern day Black woman who is transported back in time to the antebellum South. She ends up saving the life of a white plantation owner's son while he is drowning, and the novel basically follows her as she is pulled back and forth between time. That is all I know about it. That is all I want to know about it. I am super excited for this. I think it's also a TV series. Let me know if it's any good, because maybe I can do a bit of a books versus binge thing with that and watch the series afterwards. But I cannot wait for this one. It sounds fantastic. The next one that I wanted to read is The Women by Kristen Hanna. This follows a young woman who becomes a nurse in the Vietnam War, following her brother into service, and we kind of follow her on her journey while she is a nurse on the front lines. And I picked this one because, again, Kristen Hanna is another author that I've heard lots and lots about but never read any of their work. So I wanted to tick one off here. And The Women kind of spoke to me because I wanted to know a bit more about female figures in war, and also the Vietnam War is quite an interesting moment in history for me, so I'm really looking forward to reading this one. I tend to be a bit wary of any war narratives about the Vietnamese War that are outside of the Vietnamese perspective, because I feel like a lot of it has become about the American troops during the Vietnamese War and we kind of forget about the other sides. But I'm open to it. I'm open to giving it a try, and I think that this sounds really good, and Kristen Hanna is very popular, so I guess we'll find out. The next one is going to be Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn, a mystery thriller. I said previously I want to kind of expand my genres and read a bit more romance, but I also wanted to read a bit more mystery and thriller, which I have not really done in the past, so this was one that I picked. This basically follows a reporter, Camille, as she is released from like a short stay in a psych hospital, and her job when she gets out is to return to her hometown and cover the unsolved murder of a preteen girl and the disappearance of another. So I picked this one because I was kind of just like researching a little bit into what are like some popular mystery thrillers that are considered to be very good, and this one kind of came up. So yeah, Gillian Flynn seemed to be quite a well-regarded author in this category, so I went with that one. Okay, so the next one on my list is Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan, and this is another kind of foray for me into the romance genre. This one I believe is a kind of second chance romance, is that what it's called? Where the characters have been together previously and then it's kind of a second chance to them. So this one follows Yasmin and Josiah, and they are divorced and currently co-parenting, but they just seem to be pulled together, and I guess we follow them as they kind of struggle to stay apart from one another. I've heard very good things about Kennedy Ryan and this series. I think a booktuber, I can't remember who, but I think it was Gavin, said that it was one of his favourite romances that he'd read. So it just looks looks great, and maybe this will be the romance that finally does it for me. Although, I really don't normally like second chance romances, but I've got to give it a go at some point, don't I? So the next one on my list is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. Rebecca Ross was the runner-up on my romantasy category, I think, on Goodreads, and I've heard a few things about Rebecca Ross, so I'm excited for this one, and I've seen and heard a lot about Divine Rivals. So this one is basically about two rival writers who are competing for a promotion, which sounds fun in itself, but then you throw in the fact that they also are existing in a world where the gods are at war with one another. Got lots of fantasy in there, got some gods, got some fighting, war, and also writers. That just sounds fantastic. I'm pretty excited for this one. The next one on my list is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, and I read Yellow Face by R.F. Kuang recently and really enjoyed it, and I've had The Poppy War on my TBR for a long time now, I think maybe 5 years. I can't remember when it came out, but it was something along those lines. I've had it in my house actually. I bought it, but still haven't read it, and it just looks great. The idea of a fantasy inspired by Chinese history sounds just really new and different, and I really love learning about the history of Asian countries particularly, and I can't wait to just know a bit more about that. Also, I think that R.F. Kuang had a great writing style in Yellowface, so I'm quite excited to see her tackle a completely different genre. I think that would be quite fun. This one is an epic military fantasy. I believe it's a series, the first in the series, and it's filled with kind of treachery and magic. Our main protagonist is Rin, who is a war orphan and basically qualifies to join the most elite military academy. I think this is a bit of a rare event. Our main character faces some prejudice and some difficulties, but yeah, that's pretty much all I know about it. I can't wait to start this one. This is the year where I start a few new series. I think I've got a few on this list. So I've got Vicious, I believe, is a series. The Blade itself is a series. Poppy War is a series, and I think Divine Rivals might be a series as well. And there was also the sci-fi one, Scythe as well. Scythe is a series. I've got a few series on here, which is quite exciting because I always love a series, because if I fall in love with the world enough, then I get more, and that's great. The next one is going to be The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. And another genre I really wanted to delve more into this year is horror. So I thought I would go to the classics and read a classic horror, which is The Haunting of Hill House. I also watched the Netflix series and I absolutely loved it. From the sounds of the synopsis, I don't think it's the same. I think they're quite different, but I wanted to read something that was a bit more of a classic horror, and Shirley Jackson has been highly praised. So I'm excited for this. I also really just love the atmosphere and the environment of a haunted house, so I hope to see this one done well. This one basically follows 4 people who arrive at Hill House. You have an occult scholar, his assistant, the future inheritor, and also a young woman with a dark past. And you follow them as they come to the house, and lots of things happen there. The next one on my list is another mystery thriller, and that one is going to be The Only One Left by Riley Sager. This one follows the Hope family murders, which happened in Maine in 1929, and only 17-year-old Lenora remains alive, and she is assumed to be responsible, but the police never prove anything. So now in 1983, she is an elderly woman, and a health aide called Kit comes to take care of her. Now it turns out that Lenora wants to tell her story, and so Kit helps her to write her story, and that is basically what we're following. Now Riley Sager is another big name that I've heard in the mystery thriller genre, so I just wanted to have another one on here so that I can read a bit more in the genre, see if it's something that I will enjoy. We are at our second to last book now, and that one is going to be The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. Now this is something that is definitely kind of in my favorite type of fiction. I love fiction which follows multiple generations and deals with certain traumas and certain family dynamics, and often deals with race or colonialism or something like that. I find those kinds of novels really impactful, so I'm very excited to read this one. I've had this one on my TBR for a while now as well, but this one follows 2 sisters. I think they're twin sisters, and they take very different paths in life. One of them stays in their hometown and has a black child, and the other passes as white and is married to a husband who knows nothing about her past. So we kind of follow the 2 sisters and some of their descendants over a period of 40 years. This one just seems like something that I'm just going to enjoy, I'm just going to love, so that's why I added this one to the list. And finally, we're at the very last book. This one I was in 2 two minds about, but I do really want to read it. So I have added it, and that is going to be My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. Now, this one is a really hard topic. I think it's going to be really hard hitting and difficult. So this one basically deals with the relationship between a teenage girl and her older manipulative teacher. And when she is an adult, this man is accused of sexual abuse by another young girl, and Vanessa is forced to face her past. She kind of has to reckon with the relationship that she had, as she considers this man to be her first love, and she has to kind of deal a lot with what happened to her as a child. Yeah, I've heard very, very good things about it. It seems like it's going to be a very difficult read, but I think very important. The conversations about minors and grooming and sexual abuse and the abuse of people in power. So as much as I think I'm going to find this really hard, I also think I'm going to find it really impactful, and I want to get to it eventually. I think I just need to be in a good headspace to be able to read it. Anything talking about minors and children is always a really hard thing, and I think I'm quite sensitive to this as a topic. So I haven't really read much in this area, but I would like to. And that is all of them. Those are my 26 books for 2026. I feel like I've done a good job of like making a wide variety, picking some popular books, some not so popular books, but I want to kind of catch up on different genres and different trends this year, whilst also kind of going back to my roots. So yeah, that was my list, and I'm very excited. I'll probably start straight away with The Six of Crows, which was my number one on this list. I don't know what order I'll read them in or when I'll read them, but when I need something to read, I can go and look at this list. Please let me know, is there any on here that you have read and you're particularly excited for me to read, or that you particularly recommend or don't recommend? Thank you very much for being here today, and can't wait to hear your thoughts. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. Bye!